Madison Hayes stood alone in the middle of a busy Manhattan street, staring at the tattered portfolio in her hands. The rain fell down, soaking through her clothes and drenching the papers inside. She didn't even care. She had just lost her job as a junior designer at Sterling Fashion House. The worst part? Her boss had stolen her designs, blaming her for the plagiarism. Her bank account only had $4,723 left in it, and her landlord had just sent a message. Rent was due tomorrow, or she would be out. She wiped her face, but the tears kept coming. This was it. She had nothing left. No job, no home, just this soaking wet portfolio and a life falling apart. "Excuse me, miss, are you crying? Or is that just rain on your face?" Madison looked down in surprise. Standing in front of her were 3 children, triplets, 2 boys and a girl. They couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Their big brown eyes were locked on her, full of curiosity. They were wearing matching coats that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. "It's rain," Madison said, wiping her eyes quickly. "No, that's definitely crying," the girl said seriously, crossing her arms. "I know crying. I do it at least 3 times a day." Madison raised an eyebrow. 3 times a day?" The girl nodded. "Yeah, I cry when things go wrong. Like when Daddy says I can't have ice cream for breakfast." "That's nothing," the boy next to her said. "I cried 5 times yesterday when Daddy said I couldn't have ice cream for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and my midnight snack. And my second midnight snack." The third boy rolled his eyes. "You're a baby. I only cry twice a day." Very dignified crying. The girl pointed at him. "You cried this morning because your socks were looking at you funny." "They were," the boy said, looking very serious. The left sock had an attitude. Madison couldn't help it. She laughed a little, despite the mess she was in. These kids were ridiculous, but in a funny way. "Shouldn't you be with your parents or something?" she asked, wiping away the last of her tears. "It's not safe to talk to strangers." "We're not talking to a stranger," the girl said, shaking her head. "We're talking to our new mommy." Madison blinked, staring at them. "You're what?" "Our new mommy," the boy said again. "We need one, and you look like a good one." Madison opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Was this really happening? These kids had just decided she was going to be their new mom? The girl tilted her head. "You're really good at crying, so we know you won't be shocked by how much we cry." "Yeah, that's a good quality in a mommy," the boy added. "I can't be your mommy," Madison said, shaking her head. "I don't even know your father. And $5 million sounds like a scam." "It's not a scam," the girl said quickly, pulling out a business card from her coat pocket. "This is from Fu Enterprises. Our daddy's boss said he would pay $5 million to anyone who would marry him and be our mommy. But all the ladies who came to the interviews were mean and boring. One of them was allergic to children. Can you believe that?" Madison blinked. "Allergic to children? That's not even possible." "That's what we said," the boy chimed in. "But she sneezed whenever we got near her." "Listen, I can't," Madison started, but the girl interrupted. "You seem nice," she said, tugging on Madison's sleeve. "You're already crying, so you won't be shocked by how much we cry. We need a mommy who understands that. And you already laughed at our jokes." Madison looked at these kids, who were clearly a handful, but also kind of endearing. She wasn't sure what to think. "I appreciate it," Madison said slowly, "but I can't just—" "You can," the boy said, cutting her off. "You're already our new mommy. We know it. You should come meet our dad." "I'm not." But before she could finish, a man in a suit stepped forward. Madison's eyes widened when she saw him. "Uncle Chun," the girl said, waving at the man who was standing a little further down the street, pretending to look at his phone. "He's been following us the whole time." The man waved awkwardly, and Madison blinked again, realizing that the situation was getting stranger by the second. "I can't go meet your father," Madison said, her voice weak. "You can," the girl insisted. "You have to. He's been looking for a new mommy for weeks, and we think you're perfect." Madison glanced around the street, unsure of what to do. Was she really about to meet a billionaire's father and play pretend mom for some kids she just met? "Well, I'll go meet him," Madison said reluctantly. "But I'm only agreeing to 5 minutes, okay? Just 5 minutes." The kids cheered. "Operation Mommy is a success," the girl shouted. Madison sighed, following them toward the building ahead. She didn't know what she was walking into, but at that moment, it felt like her life couldn't get any crazier. Madison followed the triplets into the building, her heart beating faster with each step. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. One minute, she was standing in the rain, crying over a ruined portfolio and a life that had fallen apart. And the next, she was walking into a mansion to meet a billionaire's children who had decided, for reasons unknown, that she was their new mommy. The lobby was grand. More than grand. It was like something out of a movie. Marble floors, towering columns, and walls covered in elegant art. Everything about the place screamed wealth. Madison felt out of place, standing there in her wet clothes, her ruined portfolio still clutched tightly in her hands. "Daddy," the girl called out, her voice cutting through the silence of the lobby. Madison watched as the man she assumed to be their father turned around. He was tall, with sharp features and perfectly styled hair. His suit looked like it had been made just for him, fitting him in all the right places. But it wasn't his appearance that made Madison pause. It was his eyes. They were tired, exhausted even. And when he saw his children, a look of relief washed over his face, like he'd just seen a lifeline in a storm. His gaze shifted to Madison, and she could see the moment of confusion flicker across his face. Then, his shoulders slumped a little, like he was preparing for whatever bizarre conversation was about to take place. "Emma, Milo, Mason," the man said softly, his voice full of emotion. "Where did you?" He stopped when he saw Madison standing there, clearly not one of his children's usual playmates. "I'm sorry," Madison said quickly. "I didn't expect to be here. No need to explain." The man cut her off, standing up straight and adjusting his suit. "I'm Alexander Fu. I assume you've already met my children." "Yes," Madison said, trying to keep her voice steady. "They've recruited me for the role of your new wife." Alexander raised an eyebrow, a smirk pulling at his lips. "That sounds about right. My children seem to have a particular way of getting what they want." Madison couldn't help but laugh. "They're persuasive." "More than you know," Alexander said, his eyes softening as he looked at the triplets. They were all standing there, wide-eyed and hopeful, looking at him like they were about to show him the best thing in the world. "Daddy," Emma said, her little voice ringing with excitement. "This is Madison. We found her." Alexander's gaze shifted from his children to Madison, a knowing look in his eyes. He didn't seem like the kind of man to believe in fairy tales, but there was something in his expression that made Madison wonder if he was starting to believe his children's odd version of one. "So," Alexander said, taking a deep breath, "I assume this is part of their operation to find me a new wife." "I'm afraid so," Madison said, her tone dry but with a hint of humor. "I've just been thrown into this." "Well," Alexander said, glancing back at his children, "they certainly know how to make an entrance. And they seem to have already decided on you." Madison felt her face flush. "I can't be your wife. I'm not qualified to be anyone's wife. I don't even know you." "They don't care about qualifications," Alexander said with a small smile. "They just want someone who will love them, who will be there for them, someone who actually shows up." Madison's chest tightened as she looked at the triplets. She could see how much they needed someone, how much they just wanted love and attention. But she wasn't sure if she was the right person to give that to them. She had enough trouble taking care of herself. "I can't promise anything," she said, looking down at her wet clothes. "But maybe we could talk. Just for 5 minutes." "5 minutes it is," Alexander said, his voice calm and reassuring, but Madison could see the exhaustion still lingering in his eyes. Madison sat down across from Alexander Fu in a room that could have been an entire apartment by itself. The mansion was vast, every room decorated with impeccable taste and an air of wealth that felt almost suffocating. But as they settled into a comfortable silence, it became clear that money wasn't going to solve any of Alexander's problems. He looked tired, not just physically but emotionally drained, as though carrying the weight of his family's expectations, his company, and his children was too much for one person to bear. The triplets, of course, were nowhere to be found. Madison could hear their distant voices, probably plotting their next scheme or playing some imaginary game. Their presence both an amusing distraction and a reminder of the stakes of this bizarre situation. "I can't believe I'm sitting here with you," Madison said, breaking the silence. "Your kids, they recruited me off the street. They think I'm the perfect candidate for your new wife." Alexander gave a small chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. "They're relentless, aren't they? I told them we weren't playing matchmaker, but they didn't listen." Madison glanced out the window, trying to collect her thoughts. The view of Manhattan's skyline was beautiful, but it did little to ease the discomfort she felt. She had just lost her job, her portfolio was ruined, and now, somehow, she was sitting in front of a billionaire, talking about pretending to be his fiancée for the sake of his children. "You said your ex-wife wants to come back," Madison said cautiously. "Why didn't she just come to see the kids? Why did she have to make it about a custody battle?" "She's complicated," Alexander replied, his voice strained. He sat back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. "She left when they were babies. We were young, and she couldn't handle being a mother. Now, after 5 years of being absent, she wants back in. But it's not for them. It's for her image, for her new fiancé, and the family connections they have." "Are you going to let her take the kids?" Madison asked softly. She wasn't sure why she was so invested, but something about these children, their innocence, their desperation, struck a chord in her. "No," Alexander said firmly, his voice cold now. "I won't let her take them. I'm fighting for them, and I'll keep fighting. But this fake engagement thing," he said, rubbing his forehead, "I don't know if it will work." Madison nodded, still unsure of what she was even doing there. "So this is all for show? To make your ex-wife believe you've moved on and can provide a stable home?" Alexander's gaze softened for a moment, and he leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "It's not just for her. It's for them. For the triplets." He sighed. "They need stability. They need someone who can love them, who will be there for them. I don't want them growing up thinking their mother didn't care about them. I don't want them to see me as the man who couldn't protect them." Madison swallowed hard, her emotions rising. The thought of those kids, so desperate for a mother, for love and attention, made her heart ache. She thought of her own life, how she had always taken care of herself, never relying on anyone. But now, sitting across from Alexander, she realized that this family, despite all its wealth and chaos, needed someone to hold it all together. "I'm not a mother," Madison said quietly. "I don't know how to be one." Alexander leaned back in his chair, his eyes studying her. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. They need someone who will show up for them every day. They don't care about perfect. They care about love." Madison felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. He was right. The triplets didn't need perfection. They needed love. They needed stability, something that had been missing from their lives for so long. "You're asking me to pretend," Madison said, her voice shaky. "Pretend to be your fiancé. Pretend to be their mother." "Yes," Alexander replied. "Just for a while. To make sure my ex-wife doesn't take them away. To make sure the kids know they're not going to lose me, too." Madison felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over her. She had nothing left, no job, no stability. But maybe, just maybe, this could be the way forward. Maybe helping this family, in whatever small way she could, was the fresh start she needed. "I'll help you," Madison said, surprising herself with the words. "I'll help you keep them. But I want something in return." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "A job," Madison said, her voice firming. "A real job. Not just pretending to be your fiancé, but something I can actually do. I'm a designer, and I want a chance to work. I want to earn my place, not just be here for the kids." Alexander sat still for a moment, his eyes narrowed in thought. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Deal." Madison woke up early the next morning, her mind racing with thoughts of the deal she had made. Fake engagement. Real job. This was all still so surreal. She had been hired as a designer at Fu Fashion, but she wasn't just there for the career. She was there to be a part of this family, a family that had recruited her off the street in the strangest way possible. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Alexander. "Good morning, Madison. I've set up a meeting with Helena at 9 a.m. for the fashion line. Don't be late. The kids are already planning today's schedule. They're excited to have you with us." Madison smiled, shaking her head. Of course, the triplets were already planning. They were 5, but they had the energy and focus of a small army. The idea of working with Helena Chun, the head of Fu Fashion's design division, terrified her. Madison had heard whispers of Helena's reputation, brilliant, but a perfectionist. The kind of person who didn't settle for mediocrity. After a quick breakfast with the triplets, who insisted on showing her their latest business plans, which included more cake and less responsibility, Madison got ready. She pulled on a simple blouse and slacks, nothing too fancy, but enough to show she was taking this job seriously. As she walked into Fu Enterprises, the building felt even more imposing than before. The marble floors, the high ceilings, and the sense that everyone was watching her, waiting for her to screw up. She couldn't help but feel out of place. She made her way to the design studio, where Helena was waiting. The woman didn't look up as Madison entered, too busy flipping through sketches with a red pen in hand. "Sit," Helena said curtly, not even sparing Madison a glance. "We're starting with the spring line. We need 5 designs by the end of the day. I don't care about your personal life or the drama around it. Just show me what you can do." Madison swallowed hard but nodded, pulling her portfolio from her bag. This was her shot. She had to prove herself. She couldn't afford to mess this up. For the next few hours, she worked in silence, sketching ideas for the spring collection. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best she could do with the time she had. She put her heart into every line, trying to stay focused, trying to block out the nagging feeling that she was still living someone else's life. Finally, when she had finished, she stood up and walked over to Helena's desk, the sketches in hand. Helena took them without looking at Madison, flipping through each one quickly. Madison's heart pounded in her chest, the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. "These are acceptable," Helena said, her voice cold. "I'll have my team review them. Maybe we'll keep 1 or 2. Maybe." Madison fought to keep her emotions in check. She wanted to tell Helena to take her red pen and shove it, but instead, she nodded. "Thank you." Helena didn't respond, just turned back to her work, dismissing Madison as though she was just another person passing through. As Madison left the studio, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her situation. She had done her best, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. Back at the mansion, the triplets were waiting for her. They had planned a celebration for her first day, which, of course, involved a cake fight. Madison couldn't help but laugh, feeling a little lighter as she watched them run around the living room with frosting all over their faces. "Mommy," Emma shouted, running up to her. "How was your day? Did you make your designs really fancy?" Madison smiled, ruffling Emma's hair. "It was fine. I think I did okay. I'll know for sure tomorrow." "Well, we think you're doing great," Milo said, holding up a drawing of Madison in a dress made entirely of flowers. "You're the best mommy ever, and you're going to be our real mommy, right?" Madison's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to hear those words from these kids. "Real mommy. I'm doing my best," she said softly, kneeling down to their level. "But we're just pretending for now, okay? This isn't real." "We know," Mason said seriously, "but we think it should be real. You're really nice to us." "I'm glad," Madison said, her throat tight. She wasn't sure what she was doing anymore. The triplets had wormed their way into her heart in such a short time. And Alex, wasn't just some rich guy anymore. He was part of this chaotic, wonderful family. But it was still all pretend, right? Madison's mind raced as she walked back to her room that evening. The triplets' words kept echoing in her head. They thought she was their real mommy. They wanted her to stay, to make it real. But how could it be real? She had only known them for a few days. She wasn't qualified for this. She barely knew how to take care of herself. But looking at the triplets, seeing the way they looked at her with so much hope and trust, made something stir deep within her. They needed her. They needed love, stability, something their biological mother had refused to give them. The next morning, she woke up to the sound of excited voices in the hallway. It was too early for the triplets to be awake, but sure enough, they were already planning their next move. Madison stepped into the hallway and saw them huddled around a piece of paper, scribbling with crayons. As she approached, they looked up, their faces lighting up when they saw her. "Mommy," Emma shouted, running over and handing her the paper. "We made you a list. We want to know what you like, so we can make you happy." Madison looked at the list. It was a mess of drawings, all jumbled together. There were hearts, stars, and a lot of things that looked like dinosaurs. At the bottom, written in big letters, were the words, "We want you to be happy. Please stay." Her chest tightened. These kids, these crazy, loud, wonderful kids, had already become a part of her. A huge part of her. She hadn't expected this to happen, but here she was, stuck between pretending and becoming something real. "Thank you, Emma," Madison said softly, her voice cracking. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." The triplets cheered, jumping up and down in excitement, and Madison felt a wave of warmth spread through her. Maybe this wasn't what she'd planned for her life, but it felt right. They needed her, and maybe, just maybe, she needed them too. The day passed quickly, full of chaos as usual. Madison spent the morning working with Helena on designs for the spring line, which, to her surprise, Helena seemed impressed with. She didn't have much to say other than that the work was adequate, but the approval was enough for Madison. At least she wasn't going to be fired yet. By afternoon, she was back at the mansion, helping the triplets with their homework. Well, at least pretending to help them. They had more questions than she had answers for, but the moments when they looked up at her with their wide eyes, eager for her approval, made her heart swell. Later that evening, when the kids were finally in bed, Madison found herself sitting in the kitchen with Alexander. The air between them was different now, not just because of the fake engagement, but because something had shifted. They were both in this strange situation, trying to figure out what to do with their lives, but somehow, it didn't feel so impossible anymore. "How was your day?" Alexander asked, leaning against the counter. "It was fine," Madison said, stirring her tea. "I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I'm doing okay." "You are," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "You've already done more than most people would in your position." Madison looked up at him, meeting his gaze. "I'm not perfect. I don't even know what I'm doing. But I'm trying. I'm really trying." Alexander smiled, a small but genuine smile. "That's all any of us can do." Madison felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. Maybe this wasn't perfect. Maybe it wasn't the life she had imagined for herself, but it was something real, and that was more than she'd had in a long time. Later that night, as Madison lay in bed, she couldn't help but think about everything that had happened in such a short time. Her life had been turned upside down in just a few days, but despite all the chaos and uncertainty, she felt like she was starting to find her place. She didn't know where this would lead. The custody case with Alexander's ex-wife was still looming, and she wasn't sure if the fake engagement would hold up. But as she closed her eyes, hearing the sounds of the triplets' laughter echoing down the hallway, she realized that maybe, just maybe, this was where she was meant to be. Madison was folding small socks when the house went quiet. Not the normal quiet. Not the kind that came after the triplets finally fell asleep. This quiet felt heavy, like something bad had just walked through the front door. She looked up slowly. Alexander was standing in the hallway, his face tight, his jaw locked. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, one hand on the wall like he needed support. "What happened?" Madison asked softly. Alexander took a breath. Then another. "She's back," he said. Madison's heart dropped. "Who?" "My ex-wife." The words hit her like cold water. "Their mother?" Madison whispered. Alexander nodded once. "She showed up this afternoon. With lawyers." Madison stood up so fast the socks fell to the floor. "She can't just come back," Madison said. "She left them." She says she's ready now," Alexander said bitterly. "She says she wants her children." Madison felt anger rise in her chest. Hot. Sharp. "After 5 years?" Madison said. "After missing birthdays?" "First words? First steps." "She says she's changed," Alexander replied. "And she's using us against ourselves." Madison swallowed. "How?" "She claims our engagement is fake." The room felt smaller. "She says you're just a woman I hired," Alexander continued. "A homeless woman the kids picked off the street." Madison flinched. "She's asking the court to take the kids away," he said quietly. "She says I created a fake family to block her." Madison's hands shook. "Did you tell her it's not fake?" she asked. Alexander looked at her. Really looked at her. "That's the problem," he said. "I don't know what this is anymore." Madison's chest tightened. The front door opened suddenly. Loud. Sharp. 3 small voices filled the house. "Daddy, we're home." "Mommy, Madison, we got stickers." Mason tried to trade his shoes for candy again. Madison turned. The triplets ran in, laughing, full of life, full of trust. Emma stopped first. She looked at Madison's face. "Mommy," Emma said slowly. "Why do you look sad?" Madison knelt down and pulled her close. "I'm okay," Madison lied. Milo looked between Madison and Alexander. "You're lying," he said calmly. Your voice changed. Mason frowned. "Did we do something wrong?" "No," Madison said quickly. "Never." Alexander stepped forward. "Kids," he said gently, "there's something we need to talk about." 3 faces went serious. "Our old mommy came back," Emma said quietly. Madison froze. "How do you know?" she asked. Emma hugged her tighter. "We heard Uncle Chun talking," Emma said. "She wants to take us." Mason's lip trembled. "We don't want to go." Milo stood very still. "She doesn't know us." Emma looked up at Madison, eyes shining with fear. She can't take us away from you, Emma said. You're our mom now. Madison felt tears burn her eyes. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. But deep inside, fear curled tight. Because Madison knew the truth. She had no money before this. No family. No power. And now, someone rich and angry wanted to erase her. That night, Madison lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. You don't belong in that family. Walk away now, or I will make you disappear. Madison's breath caught. She turned slowly toward the hallway. 3 small doors. 3 sleeping children. Madison clenched her phone. No, she whispered. But deep down, she knew. The real fight had just begun. The courtroom was cold. Not cold like winter. Cold like fear. Madison sat between Alexander and Uncle Chun, her hands folded tight in her lap. She wore a simple dress, nothing fancy. She wanted to look calm, normal, strong. Inside, she felt like her heart might break in two. Across the room sat Shin Hangu, the children's birth mother. She looked perfect. Expensive suit, smooth hair, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who never looked unsure. Madison hated that part the most. Behind Madison, the triplets sat together, their feet not touching the floor. Emma held Milo's hand. Mason leaned against Alexander's arm. They were quiet. Too quiet. The judge entered. Everyone stood. This court is now in session. Madison's breath caught. This was it. Shin's lawyer stood first. He spoke clearly, confidently, like he already believed he had won. My client is the biological mother of these children. She admits she made mistakes in the past, but she is ready now. She has stability, resources, and a proper family structure. Madison felt Emma squeeze her hand. She believes the current situation is unsafe, the lawyer continued. The children are being raised by a woman with no legal claim. A woman who was homeless. A woman hired to pretend. Madison lowered her eyes. Then Alexander stood. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He spoke like a father. My children were abandoned, he said calmly. Not for weeks. Not for months. For 5 years. Shin's jaw tightened. They cried for a mother, Alexander continued. They stopped asking. And then one day, they chose one. Madison felt tears fall. She wasn't hired, Alexander said. She showed up. Every morning. Every night. For nightmares. For school. For love. The judge looked at Madison. Ms. Hayes, the judge said, do you wish to speak? Madison stood. Her legs shook, but her voice didn't. I was homeless, she said simply. That's true. Shin smirked. I had nothing, Madison continued. No job. No family. No plan. She looked at the children. Then 3 kids stopped me in the rain, she said. They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask for lies. Her voice broke. They asked if I could stay. The courtroom was silent. I didn't take anything from them, Madison said. They gave me everything. A reason to wake up. A reason to try. She looked at the judge. I don't want them because I need them, she said. I need them because I love them. The judge nodded slowly. Children, the judge said gently. Do you wish to speak? Emma stood first. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. Our old mommy didn't want us, Emma said simply. Mommy Madison does. Milo stepped forward. She listens, he said. She stays. Mason sniffed. She doesn't leave. Shin stood suddenly. They're children, she snapped. They don't understand. The judge raised a hand. They understand enough, the judge said firmly. Then the judge turned to Shun. We have recordings, the judge said. Statements. Proof of abandonment. Proof of intent. Shin's face drained of color. This court denies the custody request, the judge said. The children remain with their father and legal guardian. Emma gasped. Mason cheered before Alexander pulled him close. Madison covered her mouth. You are dismissed. It was over. Outside the courtroom, the triplets ran into Madison's arms. We won, Mason shouted. Emma buried her face in Madison's coat. You didn't leave, Emma whispered. Never, Madison said. Not ever. Alexander stood beside them, his eyes full. You did this, he said softly. We did this, Madison corrected. Weeks passed. Christmas came. Snow fell softly outside the mansion windows. Madison hung ornaments with the kids. Bad ones. Messy ones. Perfect ones. Milo read by the fire. Emma wrapped gifts badly on purpose. Mason argued with his socks again. Life wasn't quiet. Life wasn't easy. But it was full. One night, after the kids were asleep, Alexander and Madison sat together. "You know," Alexander said, "this didn't start as love." Madison smiled. "No," she said. "It started as an interview." They laughed. "But it became a family," Alexander said. Madison nodded. "3 kids interviewed a homeless woman," she said softly. "And somehow, she got the job." Alexander reached for her hand. "The best hire I ever made." Upstairs, 3 small voices whispered behind a door. "She's really staying," Mason said. "Forever," Emma said. Milo smiled. "We chose right." And for the first time in a long time, everyone slept peacefully. Because family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes, it's who finds you on a rainy street when you need each other most. And before we go, let's sit with this story for a moment. Because this was never just a story about a homeless woman or 3 children or a rich man with a big house. It was a story about life, about how fast everything can fall apart, and how quietly it can come back together again. Madison did not win because she was perfect. She won because she stayed. When she had every reason to walk away, she stayed. When fear showed up, when threats came, when the past tried to drag her back down, she chose not to give up. And that choice changed everything. Those children did not need a perfect mother. They needed someone who would listen, someone who would sit on the floor with them, someone who would not leave when things became hard. And Madison showed us something important. Love is not about where you come from. It is about what you are willing to give. If you are watching this and life feels heavy, if you feel like you are starting from nothing, please hear this clearly. Nothing is not the end. Nothing is often the place where something new begins. You may not see it yet, but your moment is coming. Your door will open. Your people will find you. Do not give up on yourself. Do not believe that your past defines your future. And do not let today's pain convince you that tomorrow has nothing for you. Sometimes, hope shows up in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes, it finds you when you are standing in the rain, thinking you have lost everything. And if you like this story, if it made you feel something real, I want to invite you to be part of this family too. Subscribe to this channel, turn on the notification bell, and stay with us. We tell stories like this to remind each other that hope still exists. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Tell us what this story meant to you. Your voice matters here, and your support helps this channel grow so we can keep sharing stories that heal, inspire, and remind us all to keep going. Because no matter how hard life gets, giving up is never an option.